Yeah, it's time to eat my words. One of my favorite videos that I've ever made was Paper Mario: Forgotten Formula, an episode of my What's in the Game video series. I ended on a somewhat ominous note, questioning whether or not Nintendo would ever remember what made the Paper Plumber so much fun to control. A lot of people have given credit to characters and story for creating the series that we all grew to love, but as someone who still believes the first game is the best game, I don't know that I agree. In fact, I think Paper Mario: The Origami King is so close to what made these games great that it's the only title since the Thousand Year Door that I believe deserves the title Paper Mario 3. I know that's a big statement. Super Paper Mario was an incredible game, and still, I'm gonna stand by what I said, because I think the things that made Super Paper Mario so great were so heavily divorced from what Paper Mario and Mario in general are all about, that it ended up creating something brand new and exciting all on its own. Yes, that deserves praise, but in a world of direct continuations, especially those that expand on the original formula, I think the Origami King actually scores higher for me, and for a lot of reasons that I'll be getting into right now. I'll start with this. In my last video, I described Paper Mario the character as a fix-all. He travels from town to town and saves the day. That's the whole chapter structure of the first two games. He identifies a problem, and then the player works through the corresponding mystery in the context of the isolated world, and then moves on to the next. However, there is a narrative thread that keeps it all working in tandem, a sort of through line that helps the world to be tied together consistently and thematically, and then finally, a big, thematically fitting battle to close out the chapter. Do all of these descriptors sound familiar? Because they also all apply to the Origami King, and not even close to the same way that some of the similar themes were seen in Sticker Star and Color Splash. Those games did have level transitions, but a lot of it felt isolated. That through line simply was non-existent. I know if you break a game down to its most basic elements, you can make any two titles sound the same. But the way this game draws on the influence of the first is clearly intentional. It draws a middle ground that none of the other post-Wii titles were willing to do. First, let's talk about the world. It's beautifully connected, a papercraft playground filled to the brim with collectibles and secrets, and visually the game is stunning, which makes it easy to get immersed in each and every environment. My somewhat extended stay in the desert, for instance, never really took me out of the context of the adventure. I not only knew where I was, but I also knew where my characters were as well, thematically, emotionally. Having those big bombastic moments and a character like Olivia to react to them as our surrogate in place of Mario makes it really easy to get sucked into the quest yourself. And that soundtrack. This might be a hot take, but I think Origami King is a contender for the best soundtrack in the entire series. Put down the pitchforks. I'm probably the biggest Paper Mario 64 fan here. I know that the main battle theme is an absolute bop, and if anyone disagrees, I will fight you to that song specifically. However, Paper Mario 64's battle fanfare walked so Last Surprise could run, and I will die on that hill. So you have to realize that when I make a claim like this about Origami King's soundtrack, it's coming from a genuine place. Yeah, there are some good tracks throughout the game, some great overworld themes that fit their areas, the boss themes absolutely slap, and even the comic relief moments are really well accented with wild songs and goofy animations. It's lovely. But the kicker definitely comes in the form of the battle themes. I mean, are you kidding? Separate battle themes for every single area? I found the battle theme in the first area to be kind of okay, but learning that when I arrived on Autumn Mountain, I'd be greeted by traditional Eastern instruments when the combat started, just increased my level of immersion through the roof. The battles no longer felt like RPG encounters ripping me out of my adventure, rather they felt like part of the tapestry, and I think the soundtrack played an incredibly large role in that. I can't even entirely say that about the normal battles in previous installments of this series. It's amazing what a little bit of extra care to sound design can do for a game. Plus, the different chapters are very diverse. No two areas feel the same, and each area has a bunch of sub-areas included. A beautiful mountain with falling leaves, for instance, transitions into a climb while avoiding falling chestnuts, and then ultimately, a ninja theme park. It also never really feels disconnected, which is some powerful stuff from a level design standpoint. As for collectibles, this world is full of them. They're also thematically relevant, and perhaps some of the best of them would be in the form of hidden toads. I know a lot of people have grown tired of toads and their flooding of every recent Paper Mario game, but I actually do think it works well here. This is in large part because of how funny they are, but also because the game is filled with a lot of other NPCs, most of which being Bowser's minions, who are actually on your side in this game. This alliance against Origami leads to some truly hilarious and at times even heartfelt moments, but we'll definitely get into that later. Back to collectibles though, finding toads will reward you in battle by affording you the opportunity to buy hints and get other types of help in battle. This does cost coins, but that's actually a resource that you'll rarely find yourself pressed for. This is problematic in some ways because it makes certain choices feel inconsequential. For instance, there's no reason to worry about weapon durability because the cost of the best weapons is tiny compared to the amount of coins you'll be collecting in the game. Consequence is crucial in game design, and I do believe it is something that in a lot of instances the Origami King actually does lack. If there's no reason not to do something, players will just about always do that thing. The collectible idols, however, are amazing, and those are excellent callbacks not only to the characters in the series, but also adventures that you'll have throughout the game. I do want to be clear, because I have been praising kind of nonstop, that I'm not absolving this game of its sins. Some of the damage done to the series through Sticker Star and Color Splash is still evident here, and I think that is most clear in the game's combat. The combat was enough to hold my attention throughout the game, and definitely a huge step up from Sticker Star, which was the last game in the series that I played, but it never really surprised or impressed me, at least not in the ways I came to expect from the original titles. The ring sliding puzzles can be difficult at times, and I do think that's for the best, but the weapon durability kind of seems to imply an attempt at strategic depth, and that really wasn't there. It's pretty easy to know whether you'll be using a jump or a hammer, and then the items that play into enemy weaknesses are fairly inconsequential, and weaknesses of the elemental variety are not very common in the game. At the very least, it's far too small to be treated as a core mechanic of the title. All in all, the regular battles are, without doubt, the weakest part of the game, even if I consider them to be fairly decent. However, I will say boss battles are another story. Origami King's boss battles are one of the best parts of the game. I know it sucks to have the stationary in place of creative, unique monsters we've seen in the past, like Tubba Blubba and Dupless, but I think for what they had, they did a really solid job of characterizing each boss and giving them a degree of plot relevance, which I think is very important. When I say plot relevance, I do want to make the distinction. The Origami King is not some narrative epic along the lines of a Final Fantasy or Xenoblade, but it does have a pretty consistent narrative through line, and so it's important when you're getting to the end of chapters for there to be a purpose behind battles with bosses. I think that's the main reason why a lot of the boss battles fell flat in Sticker Star. There really was no context for the battles themselves, something that I don't even think is true of the generic platforming Mario games. I don't want to fight Petey Piranha, for instance, just because I happen to run into him. I want to fight him because he's got Peach and Zelda in a cage, or because he's turning Bianco Hill into a filthy nightmare. The appeal of bosses in the Origami King is that it's directly tied to a sense for how you'll be rewarded for beating them. You're always kind of foreshadowed about which stationary item you'll be fighting, and you can get a sense for how you'll be rewarded in beating them. For instance, the rubber band boss is used to unbind the toads that you encounter in that area. There are some better examples later on that I think are a lot more exciting, but a lot of the charm of this game relies on surprise, and I don't want to give away those key details. As for the mechanics of the fights themselves, if you didn't know, the boss battles center around an evolution of the traditional battles ring system. Rather than rotating and sliding the enemies, you'll be using a board game-like structure to try and guide Mario to the center of the stage so he can do battle with the boss. You'll have to take a lot of things into consideration here, including power-ups scattered throughout the area, the position of Mario relative to the boss, and the positions of magic circles in the game. Bosses will also have certain gimmicks that influence how you navigate the board, but that's kind of its own separate thing. You'll encounter a different one for each boss. I do think those gimmicks in particular can lead to a sort of punishing difficulty scale, and the curve isn't particularly well balanced, and in certain instances it can become fairly repetitive. However, the overall aesthetic of these sequences does help in kind of speeding along the pacing, and it's yet another part of the game where the music carries its fair share of weight. So we've already discussed how an interconnected world services the essence of a true Paper Mario game, and how delivering on narrative through-line is key for giving context and purpose to the more episodic portions of a game. We've also addressed how battles feel a little bit on the lukewarm side, a creative idea, but certainly not one capable of supporting a 20-ish hour game. In addition, we've covered how boss battles excel as these independent climaxes to individual chapters. So there's only one topic remaining, and I think you'll all agree is more core to the Paper Mario franchise than just about anything else. The writing in Paper Mario the Origami King has a lot of merits. The story never really gets buried in nonsense in the way Sticker Star and Color Splash did. The cast is always kept to a reasonable size, so you don't have too many cooks in the kitchen, which I think was actually a bit of an issue I had with Super Paper Mario. The comedy is mint, with some of the humor MVPs being our new friend Bobby, Bowser, and my personal favorite, Olivia. She's precious, she serves as a surrogate for the player, kind of moving through this newly crafted rendition of a world that we thought ourselves familiar with, and I think her excitement in travel very much mirrors the feeling they're trying to get when you witness a lot of these surprising moments throughout the game. I also think that things are kept really fresh thanks to the amount of time you spend with Bowser's minions throughout the game. Even though they're not the original characters we've come to love from some of the earlier Paper Mario games, the diversity of the cast actually does help the world to feel far more alive. I think Color Splash kind of felt like it had a lot of humor in place of substance. Jokes for jokes' sake, non-stop. And I think in a lot of ways that kind of diluted some of the more emotionally charged moments of the game. Where I feel Origami King has a far more contextually relevant approach to its jokes. The jokes have a purpose, and they move the story forward a lot of the time. And, as a bonus, they're still funny. This game truly does have it all. Even the lore has a lot of hilarious undertones. A cruise ship called the Princess Peach, a city that's basically Vegas but with sniffets. I mean, Dealer Luigi from the DS era would have had a field day here. And speaking of Luigi, the man in green has a lot more to do in this game than he has in a long while. So if you're a fan like me, I hope that convinces you to give the title a try. I stand by my claim that this game is in every sense except for its combat, a true successor to the original Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. I think it captures the heart of the series perfectly, while still paving a new path on its own. It introduces charming and fun characters, diverse and well-crafted worlds, and a purpose to your adventure that drives you forward throughout. Put it all in a visually stunning package with an earth-shattering soundtrack, and you're left with a game that, despite its lesser combat and awkward balancing, is still well worth any Switch owner's time. The Origami King is the Paper Mario 3 that I've been waiting for. And if that's not enough for you, like I said, Luigi. Thank you all for watching this review of Paper Mario the Origami King. For more on Paper Mario, feel free to check out my What's in the Game episode about Paper Mario 64 and its critically acclaimed GameCube sequel. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe for more review and video essay content from yours truly. I like games, you like games, let's talk about games. Again, thank you all for watching, and come back soon for more from The Game Room.
I'll reveal your true form.